Hi, Leroy Third here. This is going to be a video talking about the features of Eytse's EY-200 electronic keyboard. This isn't a review. Think of this more like a video instruction manual. We're going to go through all of the features, look and see what they do and how they work. If you want to see a review, I'll try and put a card up here or something in the description. I did do a review right before this video. As a disclaimer, I do want to mention that Eytse did send this to me for review. They have no say over what I talk about, and they don't get to see the video before it's released here on YouTube. First, you should know there are 3 different models in their line. There's the EY-100, 200, and 300. This will be just discussing the EY-200. Eytse has also generously offered a discount code for any of my viewers who decide to purchase one of their products. I'll try and put that up over here. And it should be in the description as well. Their description of the device will also be in the description below. As a spoiler for the review, if you don't want to watch it, I believe this is a fantastic keyboard for someone who wants to work their skills, to make sure that they have the devotion, the dedication, the drive to continue working on the piano specifically. And even if you're looking to buy something that has other features, you may still want to buy this to work on while you're saving your money. So without further ado, let's move in and start talking about the Eytse EY-200 and how it arrives. Since the EY-200 is a 61-key electric piano, it comes in a nice big box. It also includes the bench and the stand. The box is fairly large, but it was manageable. I was able to have this thing set up in 15 to 20 minutes by myself. It has bolts you can tighten with your fingers. They have plastic bits on the end to allow you to get a grip on them. They suggest using tools, but I was able to finish this by myself with just my hands, and it's much more stable than I thought it would be. It doesn't move and creak. It's nice. It also comes with headphones and a music stand, an auxiliary cable for the input, and it comes with a sustain pedal and the AC adapter as well. This can be powered on 6 AA batteries, which I have not attempted, and it has internal speakers, which sound quite nice. The first thing we're going to examine is the screen. It kind of gets washed out on this camera here, so I've got another camera we're going to bring in so we can get a closer look at this. The main focus of this screen is the keys. It shows all 61 keys, and when you press one on the keyboard, it shows up on the display. Same thing with multiple keys. They will all show up. The next thing is up here at the top. It says tone right now. There are 3 different modes it can be in: tone, rhythm, and song, and we'll look at all of those in other portions of this video. The number next to it shows you which tone, rhythm, or song you've selected. The tempo shows you the tempo you are at for the rhythm modes and the teaching modes and the metronome. It starts at 120, that's the default, but it does go down to 30 and up to 240. Over here is a little picture of a metronome. We'll look at that later. It does move when the metronome is on, which is a nice little touch. Down here it shows the main volume with these little bars. These bars are showing accompaniment volumes, and we'll look at that as well when we look at the rhythm section. The split button here, if you press that, you'll see split shows up over here on the display, and that splits the keyboard, which we will look at when we look at the tones. Also, this can show vibrato. If you push the VIB button, we'll again get a closer look at these buttons in the rhythm section, but if you push the VIB button, it turns on vibrato, and that makes vibrato turn on. Let me show you what that sounds like. Here's a normal tone without vibrato, and a normal chord, and here it is with vibrato. The other thing is sus is right above the vibrato button. That's for the sustain pedal. So if you have that off and you just play notes quickly, nice and staccato like this, they just die off. The sustain pedal will hold those a little longer, like you're using your sustain pedal. It doesn't hold as long as it does if you're holding down the key like it would with a normal sustain pedal, but it does work fairly well as a sustain pedal. Also, you'll notice I'm not going to touch the sustain button. If I use the sustain pedal, it also turns on the little sustain warning here to let you know that you're using the sustain pedal when you press that down. There's nothing else we need to look at for the screen right now, so let's move on to the next section, which is the teaching modes. There are 3 teaching modes on this. Let's first look at what the buttons look like. I'm going to move the camera a bit here. Give me a second. So we have 3 teaching modes, 1, 2, and 3. And each of them does a different thing, and they operate on whatever song is selected. The way you get into song mode is you press one of the teaching modes or the demo button. Either one will work. When you do that, when you push, say, Teach 1, let me turn that off. I'll put this back to where it was so you can see it change on the screen. The screen shows tone by default. When you press either the demo button or one of the teaching modes, it changes to song. Now you can select one of the 50 songs that are on this thing, and you can start playing along. The demo button will just play the songs in full. Let's take a listen to see what they sound like. And you press it again to stop. It shows you the melody being played down here on the keyboard. Take a look. You can adjust the tempo as well to make that faster or slower. Let's listen while we do that. Nice. You can also put it back to the default tempo by pressing both tempo buttons at the same time. And the default tempo for each song is going to be different depending on the song. If you look over on these buttons again, you can see we have a plus and a minus button, and these plus and minus buttons will change the song one at a time, or you can type in the number of the song you want. The songs are listed in the manual. Like I said, there are 50 songs on this. Let's listen to a couple more just to get an idea of what it does and what it has available. Push the demo button, and we'll just push the plus button for song 0. Let's go to the next song. So there are a couple of things to notice about this. When the metronome is going, there's a beat going on up here, and the first beat is larger, so you know they're on the first beat, so it's showing the beats as they're going in the song. Down here, these are the different instruments that are playing. This first one is the drums. This second one is the chords, like the chords in the left hand, and this third one is anything else that's playing, melody or a second instrument. So let's start it again, and I'm going to turn down the accompaniment volume. That's over here. You can see in these buttons on the left, accompaniment volume. So let's look at these two over here. We've got the volume buttons up and down, accompaniment volume up and down, tempo up and down, and transpose up and down. You can transpose up augmented fourth or diminished fifth, a tritone, or down a tritone. The tempo, like I said earlier, can go down to 30 or up to 240. This is the rhythm section we'll look at later, so we're not going to talk about it now. You also have the percussion button, the split button, the sustain button, the vibrato button, and the metronome button, and we'll look at all of those. We looked at the sustain and the vibrato, but we'll look at these others in just a second. Anyway, so each of these songs will have its own tempo, and when you change to a new song, the tempo changes as well to match what the song is. Of note, again, with these bars, this first bar is percussion, and the accompaniment volume, all the accompaniment volume does is turn up or down the percussion. So let's try that out. Watch this bar as we play the demo, and I turn down the accompaniment volume, and listen for the drums. Now, that's not a great one for drums. Hold on. We'll go back to song 0. There we go. It doesn't have any percussion either. Hold on. There we go. All right, I'm going to turn down the accompaniment volume, and you see the drums going here on the first bar. So we've taken out the drums ostensibly just by using the accompaniment volume. All right, the reason this is important, these songs in this demo, is that listening to the demo is the way you know what's being played, because the teaching modes use that song, and that's what you'll be playing back. So in teaching mode 1, if you press teaching mode 1 on these buttons over here, 1, it's just going to sit here and wait for you to press a button, any button at all. So you can stop that by pressing the teaching button again, or by pressing the demo button. The teaching mode 1, all you have to do is press any key, and it's just going to play the melody. It doesn't matter what key it is, but you have to play it in rhythm. So if you don't know the song, you're not going to be able to play along, which is why you're able to play the demos. So like if we go to song 0, and we go to teaching mode 1 again, right? All right, so that's how that one works. You listen to the song in demo mode, and then you just play back the rhythm, and it plays back the melody on the right keys, no matter what key you're pressing. Mode 2, it's going to show you the note for the melody here on this keyboard, and it's going to wait until you play it on the actual keyboard. It doesn't tell you the rhythms, but it'll just wait until you play the right note. Let's take a look and see what that looks like. So it's just going to wait, and it's telling you, hey, play that B. And if you don't play the note, it's just going to sit there and wait until you do. For mode 3, it's going to play it normally, as it normally does, with the melody and everything, until you start playing. When you start playing, it takes out the melody. You can play wrong notes. It'll keep going. Let me show you. So it's playing the melody now, but if I start playing anything, it's waiting for me to play. And if you don't play for a while, it starts playing on its own again until you start playing. So it'll just wait and notice you're not playing, and then say, okay, you're not playing, let me show you how this works. So those are the 3 teaching modes. The first one, again, you play in rhythm, play any keys you want. The second one, you play the right notes and it'll wait for you. And the third one, it'll take out the melody if you're playing the melody. Those are how the teaching modes work. Let's move on and we'll look at percussion and split modes and the metronome next. The first and easiest thing to look at is percussion mode. If you press percussion, there's nothing on the screen that tells you you're in percussion mode, but the keys do different things now. So if you turn this off, it's just the keyboard, just the piano, right? You push percussion, now you got drum sounds. Starting all the way over here in the bottom C, you've got your kick, and you've got 11 sounds total. All the basic ones, you've got your kick, snare, hi-hat, clap. Up to 11, let me play these for you so you can see what all 11 sound like. That's it. When you get past the 11th one down, the 12th one goes back to the kick. So these are the same. Same thing if you go up another octave, or another, a minor second there. So it just repeats. It'll be these 11 sounds, and they'll repeat across the entire keyboard, just starting on a different key. So maybe it's easier for you to play on, white keys or something. I don't know. It'll shift as you go up the keyboard. So it's definitely usable for practicing finger drums. You don't have much control over the sound, but they're fine. They're basic drum sounds. Push percussion again to get out of percussion mode, and you're back to your tones on the keyboard. Split mode is interesting. That's right here by percussion. Split mode. What split mode does is it divides the keyboard into 2 sections. So you could have a teacher sitting on the left, for instance, and a student sitting on the right, and the teacher could play something down here and say, okay, play what I'm playing. So when you press split, it does show you split on the screen, so you know you're in split mode. And what that does, again, is here's where it splits. So this key is the same as this key. So if the teacher plays, then the student could play. They are the same notes, so if you play the same one, it gets kind of weird because trying to play the same thing twice, but you could play different things in the same octave if you wanted to. You could also, interestingly, with the split mode, have 2 different voices. So the voice that's going to be on split no matter what is the voice you give it when you press split. So if we go to, say, voice 1. Oh, we're in song mode. Sorry, see it says song. We're not in tone mode. It's called tone or timbre mode, and this is what selects the sound. So we can go to tone 1, this nice little sound. And then if we push split, both of them are on this sound. But now if we change the sound, it just affects the keys on the right. So let's put it back to piano for this one. See, now I have the piano sound here, but we have this other sound in the left hand. So you can use that to your advantage, like if you want to play a bass or something, I don't know. you could certainly use that for something. I think mostly it's meant to be used for teaching. Just, let me show you this, now play it, and it's in the same octave. You could go without using the split mode, certainly, and just play in a different octave or demonstrate in the same octave, but it is useful that it's there. I always like having other options as opposed to not having options, right? The other thing we're going to look at in this section is the metronome. It's down here, labeled Metro. And this one works a little differently than most metronomes I've seen, in that it has 4 separate modes. When you first push it, it's just going to play a single beat, just 1, 1, 1, 1. And it shows you here, it's just playing beat 1. The metronome here is moving back and forth like a metronome would. That's a nice little touch. Doesn't need to be there. This shows you the tempo, but I like that. I think that's quite whimsical, to be honest. If you press metronome again, you're going to be playing in 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. And again, it shows you where 1 is, this nice big notification here. If you press it again, you're in 3 time. 3, 4, for instance. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And again, you're in 4, 4. So you know exactly where the 1 is, and you know that you're not missing a beat or adding a beat somewhere. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, you can change the tempo to vary how fast that is, which is useful with a metronome, certainly. I recommend practicing with a metronome as much as you can. Getting this rhythm internalized and being able to work steadily not only helps you learn faster, but will help you to play better with other instrumentalists and to work on a DAW. It is one of the core things to learning to play an instrument. Definitely use that metronome. I think that is fantastic that they added that on here. For this feature, or for this section, I think we are finished. Let's go to the next section, and we're going to talk about the rhythm section and the play and record features. First, let's talk about play and record. This is the one feature on here that I don't really know how to describe. So you have these record and play buttons right here. It's kind of fuzzy on this camera. Sorry, this camera is not very good, the secondary camera, but you have record and play. So all you do is you press record, and it just waits, and then you play something. And then when you push play, it plays it back. Seems simple enough. The issue I have with this, I thought at first, maybe you can use that to see how you're playing. Are you playing in rhythm? Are you playing as well as you think you are? I'm going to play something, then I'm going to play it back, right? Unfortunately, that doesn't always work as you might expect, because it seems like internally it's quantizing this. So it seems like it's saving these notes as MIDI notes. They're not always as long as you play them, and they're not always in exactly the same place you play them. At a faster tempo, it's not always that obvious, but if we move it down to a really slow tempo, sorry, I'm showing you the screen here. So move down to 30 BPM, that's as slow as it goes, just because this will exacerbate it, just so you can see kind of the scope of the problem I'm showing you. So if we record now, sorry, I can't see the button. Say we play something fast, right? Let's play it back and see what it sounds like. Oh, I wasn't recording. Hold on. Let's try that again. There we go. Record is up here on the screen. REC at the top right. So let's play that back. Notice it didn't play them separately. It just plays them as a stab. Again, it's because, well, it seems to be recording at this tempo, whatever tempo is set, but you can't turn the metronome on while you're in record mode, so you don't know where the tempo is. So if you're just off of the beat somewhere, off of one of the the subdivisions of the beat, it'll put it to the nearest subdivision. It'll move it around. I noticed that again when I was playing things. I noticed it wasn't in the right place. I went back and listened to my recording. I'm like, that's not what I recorded in, right? So again, if you play slow enough and you're close enough to the beat, it'll sound fine. Notice again, the notes are much shorter, right? Again, because it's trying to subdivide it. They weren't as long as I played them for. But if you have a fast enough tempo, like especially if you go up to 200 or something, it's much closer. Did you notice how it was rushed a little bit at the end? They're kind of stacked together. So whatever tempo it's at internally, which is probably 120, I wasn't playing it exactly that, so it had to move things around a little bit to make them fit. Again, you could probably move this up to 240 beats a minute, which is the maximum, then that would be less noticeable. But again, I don't, without being able to use the metronome with this, and you can't save this once you leave recording mode, whatever you recorded is gone. I'm Just not sure how you would use this. Tell me in the comments below, how would you use this feature? What do you think this would be good for? Again, I'm not coming down on this. It's just one of the features that I don't quite understand what it's useful for. Let's look in the next section at the rhythm section. Let's look at the rhythm section. I'm going to show you the buttons first. I'm not going to keep moving the camera around for the buttons, so I'm just going to show them to you now. So first, we're going to look over here, and you can see we have a button for rhythm right here. That'll change you to rhythm mode. That'll be shown on the screen here. Rhythm mode, and that's going to tell you which rhythm you're on. There are 300 different rhythms. They're listed in the manual. We're going to look at some of those, but that's what we're going to be looking at in this section, the rhythm section and rhythm mode, not the tone mode. In the next video, portion of this video, we'll look at the tones. Anyway, so the other thing we're looking at is over here. These are all part of the rhythm section we're going to be looking at. So let's just take a look at each of them and see what they do in turn. First of all, start, stop, just going to turn on the rhythm. And when you go to different rhythms, again, using the plus and minus off to the right over here, it's going to change the rhythm. Notice it's at 95 BPM. If we change, it's going to change it changes the tempo and it changes the beat. So I'm going to stop that for now. But I mean, that's something that could be useful for keeping things like practicing scales and chord progressions, even songs, more interesting. Just just a beat, just something to work to. I'll often in my DAW, if I'm writing music or on hardware I have, just set up a very simple drum beat just to keep me moving forward. And that's what I think this section is for in most cases. Now, there is a little secret sauce here. It does more than just that. And before we get there, let's first look at the sync. No, we're going to look at the fingered first. Okay, we're going to look at single finger first. Single finger, this has to do with chords, and it's intrinsically linked with the rhythm section. So if we push single finger, in the screen, you're going to notice that it says single. So we know we're in single finger mode. But what does that do? Well, when you press a key down here, so from F sharp down to C, it's going to play a major chord. These are all major chords. Now it does split here at this G. So this G, it goes up, right, all the way up the scale. But then at below G, it goes back to here, right? So these are all the same. I'm not sure why that's made like that, but that's how it works. So that's what this is. In single finger mode, you're playing one finger to make a major chord. So if you wanted to play along, okay, that's nice, but I hear you saying, well, what about minor chords, diminished chords, augmented? How do you do other chords? I mean, sure, you can make a song with just 4 major chords, but that seems like it might not be as useful as it could be. Well, correct. Yes, that is a fine thing to ask, and you could make a song with just 4 major chords, something like. Yes? I mean, this is basically made to make accompaniment very easy. But if you want to do other types of chords, you can do that too with single finger mode, but it doesn't take a single finger anymore. So if you want to make a minor chord, you press the key for the major chord you want to make, and then press the black key just to the left of it. Notice now it says C minor. So I'm pressing C and then the black key to the left of it. So what if we wanted like F minor? We'd press F and then the black key to the left of it, F minor, right? You are skipping keys, and that seems kind of weird, but that's because when you want to make a 7th chord, you press the white key just to the left of the key that you want to press. So if you wanted a C dominant 7 chord, which is a C7, you'd press C and then the white key just to the left of it, C7. So you can play that up here too. It sounds like this, right? That's what's being played is these 4 notes, C7. Now, when you do press more than one key in single finger mode, it plays the entire chord over. So it's playing C major and then C7. Just something to keep in mind. Also, if you play all 3, it's going to play a minor 7 chord. So C7, C minor 7. So here's C minor 7. So you still have to have a little bit of knowledge of what chords you want, but it'll play the most basic chords. Major, dominant 7, and minor 7. those are the major, minor, dominant 7, and minor 7. So those will get you pretty far in a lot of music, but I don't think that's really what this is used for. This is used for setting the chord and the scale. You want the rhythm mode to play. What? You say, I thought rhythm mode was just for rhythms. Not at all. So you start a rhythm, and then you want to play in C, for instance. Now it's playing in the C major scale, so you can just play C. You can change it as it's playing. Okay, that's kind of cool, right? Also, you have a fill-in button. The fill-in button not only works with the rhythm, let's listen to that, and it's different for each rhythm that you choose, but it also works, again, with the melody, or with the chords it's playing. So if you tell it to work in C and push fill-in, depending on the rhythm, it does different things too, just so you know. It has 300 different rhythms, so there's a lot of variation here. The sync mode tells it to to wait to play the rhythm until you push notes down here to tell it what scale to play. So if you hit sync, it's going to sit here waiting. It's going to flash at you and say, okay, I'm waiting for you. What are we going to play? Want to do G major? Okay, G major. It starts as soon as you press that, so you can get a nice, good running start on that. Next is the fingered button, and that's kind of weird. What is this? What is this fingered? So this means you're going to actually have to play a full chord, and then it'll play that chord for you. You do have to know a little bit more about music to do that, but it can play a hugely, vastly different number of chords than just using single finger mode. So, for instance, you can play major chords, minor chords, diminished chords, augmented chords. You can also play major 7, minor 7, minor major 7. Am I forgetting any? Dominant 7. And there's one more you can play. It's labeled as a 9 chord. And to get this one to play, you have to omit the 7. So it's not actually a 9. It's a 2 or an add 2. Listen to what it's playing, and I'll play it for you, what it's actually playing up here. It's playing this. But a 9 chord would have the 7. The 9 chord, the 9 could be down an octave, sure, but it would still have the 7. And this doesn't. This just has the 1, 2, 3, and 5, or 1, 9, 3, 5, and it labels it as a 9. Again, just mislabeled. I don't know why. You're not going to use that chord very often, but that is a 2 or an add 2 chord. But those, so you have so many more options. I mean, you can do pretty much every basic chord, including, again, the major or the minor major 7. You don't see that very often. You notice it the most in something like the James Bond. This James Bond chord is the major minor 9. Sounds like this, or minor major 9, excuse me. The minor major chord is just not one you see all that often, but it's useful because, again, you can use any of these chords with the rhythm section. Let's try that with a major 7 chord, for instance. Okay, let's go to minor 7. Again, it's going to show you down here exactly what kind of chord you played. Let's try augmented. Odd, yeah, augmented is always odd. Let's try minor. Let's try minor 7. All right, let's go ahead and try the minor major 7. Interesting. I don't think, at least for this rhythm, that they had all of those chords in mind for this, but it is interesting anyway. It gives you something to play with. It makes scale study way less boring. Same thing with working on chords or working with melody. I think the main focus of this seems to be just to play melody, because while this is playing, as I mentioned before, you can play up on the keyboard. You can play along. So I think that's the main focus of this. But again, for doing scale work and stuff, which is mind-numbingly boring anyway, that can really help. The last thing in the rhythm section is the bass button. And you might think, well, what does that do? That changes what the chord sounds like. There are 7 different instruments that you can put on that. Let's put it back into single finger mode just to make this easier. So it's going to be a C major chord. So See, same thing. The bass, the bass chords do sound volume-wise a little lower than what you're playing in the right hand as well. Again, listen. A little louder on the top, which is probably good for your melody. But so that's what it's playing. If you press the bass button, it changes the instrument. Listen. And then back to piano. So it's got 7 different sounds, and again, you can even change that while it's playing. So again, what it's showing here when it's playing, this is the drums, and the drums you can take out with the accompaniment volume. And then this next one shows what the bass is doing. It'll have bass notes going. And then this one shows you what the other voice is doing, the melody. Interesting to know, this does use part of the polyphony. So in the next section, we're going to talk about tones on this instrument and what they sound like and how to change them and stuff. It does take notes from polyphony. So each drum hit and each bass note and each melody note, it takes away from notes you can play. So I think what this is for is the idea is to play single notes in the right hand, because that won't really affect the polyphony. But if you are playing like large chords up here, you might notice that some of them get stolen by the accompaniment, or you steal some of the accompaniment with the chords you're playing. Just keep that in mind. In the next section, we'll look at the tones and the polyphony. Let's look at the tones. So we're in rhythm mode right now, and we're on single finger. Let's turn off single finger. Just so we can go back to playing the bass notes. And since we're in rhythm, we want to go back to the tones. And here it's labeled timbre. So we'll just push that button, and the screen goes back to tone. You can use these numbers to dial in a rhythm or a tone or a song if you don't want to use the plus and the minus. The plus and the minus is here. You could use these numbers instead to do tone 123 or something. Or 234. Or 000. That's the default that comes up the piano. Just so you know, you can use these numbers, or you can use the plus and the minus. Yeah. All right. So this does have 300 tones, and they're broken up. So the first 16 tones 000 to tone 015, you have 8-note polyphony. That means you can play 8 notes at the same time. Just to demonstrate that, we'll get on a tone that lasts a little bit longer. Give me a second to find one. I think it's this one. Yeah. So as long as you hold down a key on this one, it'll play that note. And one thing before we get into polyphony, I want to talk about the sustain pedal as well. So typically a sustain pedal, it acts as if you're holding down the note with your finger. So it should act exactly the same way if I hold down the sustain pedal as if I hold down the key, right? But let's take a look. If I hold down the sustain pedal, it doesn't. It fades away after a couple of seconds. I think that's done because of the polyphony. For most things you're going to be playing, that doesn't really make a difference. So let me just play a quick arpeggio. Right? It just dies out. But if we hold the sustain pedal, definitely sounds different. It's nice. It works. For typical playing of the piano, that's going to be okay. But what happens is when you're holding down the sustain pedal, notes are just ringing out until they naturally die, as if you're holding down the key. So with limited polyphony, if it was holding it down forever, you just hear notes cutting out as you're going, as you're using more and more notes because it can't keep up. So I think that's what they did, and it's a good trade-off. Again, you're not going to typically use that too much. You can still get some good sustain. It sounds fine. So with the polyphony, with the first 16 tones, you have 8-note polyphony. And again, for my purposes, this is not even important. Like I would buy this if you could just turn it on and it was just the piano and that was all I had. If it had any of the features we've talked about today, I would still buy this and use it because that's how it's useful to me. But regardless, so the first 16 tones has 8-note polyphony. So up here, I'm going to play 7 notes, right, all together. And we're going to play 1 note down here and just listen to what happens when we play the 7 and the 1. That's 8. It should be fine. Oops, sorry. Let me get a better grip on this here. There we go. And if I let go of those keys, you can hear this is still ringing out because I only played 7 other notes. Great. But if I play 8, this one's gone. Right? So again, just keep in mind, 8-note polyphony. For most of, if you're learning the piano and playing piano music, for the most part, that is not going to affect you because you're not going to be playing 8 notes in your first couple of years of piano at the same time, for the most part. So let's look at some of these tones and see what they sound like. To be honest, I just use the tone that is the default and turn it on for the most part. That's tone 000. It's the piano. Sounds nice. It's kind of general MIDI-y, right? It kind of sounds like the keyboards and stuff you'd get from the 80s and 90s, which is fine. I like that sound. It's kind of pleasingly lo-fi. It's not going to make anybody think you're playing a grand piano, but it doesn't have velocity sensitivity either, so that is something to consider. But even the low notes, they sound nice and whole. There are some splits here where you can hear a different sample maybe that they've used. Like right here. There's a slight difference in volume there and in timbre. So up and down the keyboard, again, you can hear a couple places where you can tell, but you're typically playing chords and melodies and stuff, and it's not going to stick out that much. But it does sound nice across the entire keyboard. Here's the lowest, here's the highest. It's nice. That's the one I stick with most of the time, but there are some really good instruments, even in the first 16 sounds. Here's the next one. Kind of like a little bell. It's nice. It has some nice, a nice feel to it. It sounds nice and round. It's fun to play. I like it. And then there's some that I don't know what I'd do with, but don't know. Maybe I don't have the manual on me right now. I think that's maybe an accordion or something. I think this is a guitar. Maybe it's a bass. I do quite like the clarinet that's on here. None of these instruments are going to sound like an actual instrument, but they sound nice in their own right. Just exploring these sounds a bit. Ooh, that's a bass, if I ever heard one. What's next? I'm just having fun now, sorry. Wasting your guys' time looking through these sounds. This is probably a violin, maybe a cello. Oh, it sounds like probably a harp. Strings. Sorry for for the sounds too. I'm not playing anything prepared. I'm just kind of enjoying experimenting with the sounds. I kind of assume that if you're watching this, you're like me since you watch my videos and you probably enjoy that anyway. I'll just sit and listen to people do this on videos regardless. Anyway, sound 10. Oh, this is the clarinet sound I kind of like. Again, doesn't sound exactly like a clarinet, but you know it's a clarinet by listening to it. I like it. Like there's something round and melancholy, but also hopeful about a clarinet that I just really enjoy. See what else we have here. Again, I've looked through all of these sounds, just FYI, but I don't know. The first 15 I really like a lot. Very buzzy, like sawtooth-like, but like a filtered sawtooth it kind of sounds like. I'd have to look up what sound they say it is in the manual, but I haven't done that. Right, let's move on to the next one. Oh, this must be a flute. Oh, this sounds like a banjo. Ooh, oh yeah, this is like a church organ or something. Sounds so powerful, so big. I love that. Nice. All right, so the sounds that are above sound 15, so sounds 0 through 16, are all 8-note polyphony. The sounds above that use two tones each. So there's only 4-note polyphony. So if you play, say a low note, let's get something that sustains a bit longer. There we go. So if you play 3 notes, you're fine. If you play 4 notes, you're going to lose whatever note you played first. It goes from the notes you played first, and it removes those first. So just be aware that you've only got 4-note polyphony for sounds 16 through 299. This is also useful to know when you're playing in rhythm mode, because rhythm mode is going to take at least 1 tone for the drums, 1 tone for the bass, and 1 tone for the melody or the chords. And it can use up to 5. So depending on how many voices it's using, you may only get 1 note if you're in these higher tones. To be fair, I like tones 0 through 15 the most anyway. I don't venture into these a lot because honestly, well, they do have several voices. Like you can hear sometimes it's using the second voice just as like a transient, just an attack, something to give it more character. I don't find them as interesting as I find the first 16 sounds. So I typically use those more, but there are a lot of different sounds. I think there's just a plain square wave and a plain saw wave. This sounds like it's probably a piano and like strings. Yeah. It's nice. So, like I said, typically I'm just going to play in piano mode because I think it sounds good, and you turn it on and it just works. And it's good for scales. You can play that with the metronome or with the rhythm section as well. You can play things that are a little more sparse. Again, it's great for practicing. It's great for working on your skills. It's great for building up these things and deciding if this is something you're going to keep up with. It's good for someone who doesn't have any training in this yet, especially. And like me, I've done piano for years. It's been years since I studied piano, but like in college, I do this for years. I love the piano, and still, I've been using this every single day since I got it. I think it's invaluable. I would love to have something that's a little more expressive, maybe has some other tools. But for the price, it's fantastic to just sit there and beckon to me and say, hey, come practice. Let's work this out. And I love that for this. So those are the features, you guys. I think I've covered everything on this keyboard. Again, just like I said in the review, I do recommend this if you're not sure you're going to stick with piano or you're just starting out. While I am saddened by the lack of velocity sensitivity, there's nothing in this price range that has velocity sensitivity. That's a full keyboard and 61 keys. Even if you bought just a MIDI controller that was 61 keys and had to provide your own computer and your own software for it to work, you're going to be paying 2 or 3 times the price of this for just a MIDI controller. So at the price, I mean, the keyboards alone cost around $100. Again, I'll put the links and their discount code in the description below. But for the price, I think that's fantastic. The bench and the stand are great quality. I was very much impressed by how sturdy they were, which is strange. I didn't expect to be excited about that. But I wholly recommend all of you watching. We're musicians. If you don't know how to play the piano, if you haven't taken lessons, if you're just thinking about starting, get something like this and start right now. See if you're going to stick with it. And if you do, maybe then consider buying something that has more features, right? This has features, but maybe you're looking for something specific and you don't even know what you need yet. Start here. Start working on your scales, work on your fingers and your hand independence, work on your rhythm. This has so many skills you can work on. Typically, even in beginning books, you're going to be working on dynamics, and I would love this to have some dynamics. But again, just speaking as someone who knows hardware a bit and software, implementing velocity sensitivity on 61 different keys would make this, at least right now, impossible at this price point. So that's something that I can kind of look past at this price range. It's something I think is certainly important, but it's more important than you get started. If you start tomorrow, you're going to wish you'd started playing today. If right now you may be looking back saying, I wish I'd started as a kid, in 20 years, you're going to say, I wish I'd started now. Just get started. If it's something, if you don't like playing the piano, you haven't spent that much money. This doesn't break the bank, right? It's a discount solution. It's affordable for pretty much everybody. It's useful. You can start working on these skills right now. And in 6 months, if you decide, hey, I've been playing this every single day, my skills are so much better now, I'm so happy I was playing, and then you're like, I want to get something that has velocity sensitivity or whatever, in 6 months, you'll know, right? And again, you can give this to a child, a cousin, a niece, a nephew. You can donate it to a charity or something. It's something that can be used. And if you take this somewhere, you're not going to worry about it getting, hurt. Because again, it's affordable enough to make it something you don't have to be concerned about. Anyway, I'm Leroy Third. I hope you've enjoyed this look at the features on this keyboard. And if you want to know more about my opinion on this and what I think, check out my review video. The links are in the description. I will see you guys next time. Go make something you're proud of and share it with other people. Bye, guys.